Welcome to episode 7 of Winning the Journey Within podcast. This week we are joined by Juan Fernández, a true floor general with impressive career that led him from Argentina to Italy, where he spent most of his professional years. Along the way, Juan faced internal battles and admits he stepped away from the game for 2 seasons due to mental health challenges. He opens up about how sports psychology helped him rebuild confidence and reclaim his passion for basketball. Tune in to discover what it truly means to win the journey within. Juan, welcome. Welcome to my podcast, Winning the Journey Within. Thank you for finding the time and finding worth in my project.
Yeah, thank you. I love what you're doing, so it's happy to be here.
Thanks. Well, I'm just gonna start with first question that I normally ask my guests, and that's, who is Juan outside of basketball?
I had to figure out the answer to that question 2 years ago when I retired, and so I was kind of forced to it. I found out that I am a lot more than just a basketball player. To start with, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother for the people I love the most, a friend. And I'm also someone who's learned to use basketball as an instrument for something much bigger. Now, I figured that one out a little bit later in my life recently. But I found peace with my sport through the challenges, and I think I'm someone who can now appreciate the journey a lot more than I was able to a few years ago, and someone who keeps using basketball as an instrument for doing something I love and to allow me to do some good, something bigger through it as a bridge for something more in life. So I think that's the journey I'm on, and that's how I like to see myself outside of being a basketball player.
That's awesome. I love that, and especially because this is the reason why I asked this question at the beginning. I feel like it's really important to find our identity outside of the sport that we play, and it's much healthier, obviously.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy because, I mean, probably happened with you too. I started playing very, very young. Yeah. My father was a professional basketball player, so it almost seemed like unintentionally that was my entire world. And I realized that, okay, without reflecting on living my life that way, it got to a point where it became too much, because when the area of your life that seems to be the whole of your life at one point maybe is going through some challenges, or things aren't going very well, or your team doesn't re-sign you, or you're losing a few games, or you're not playing at a high level, then it seems like everything falls apart, and it shouldn't be that way. But obviously I had to learn how to separate things and be able to move forward with a different intention than just inside the basketball court.
Yeah. Do you think this moment of realization that you needed to figure out who you are outside of basketball, that it came at the right time? Do you wish like it happened earlier? Do you wish you grew up differently?
Yeah. I mean, no, I don't have any regrets, and I'm a true believer that everything happens when it needs to happen. Now, in an ideal world, I would have liked to learn certain lessons earlier, because it would have prevented probably a lot of headaches throughout my life. But at the same time, I wouldn't go back and change anything, because I think that's what forged the person I am today, and I am proud of the person I am today and becoming still. So if going back and changing anything would maybe put in risk what I have today, I'd say I had to pass on that.
Perfect. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing a great job on yourself. And I want to reflect now. Let's go back. Let's talk about your beginnings. Mm-hmm. How did you start playing basketball? You said your father was playing, and how did all this come about?
Yeah, it came pretty natural. I mean, my dad's first year as a pro was the year I was born. It was 1990. So after that, he played 17 years, many of which, I mean, my whole life I grew up following him, you know, just like our lives. We move city to city every few years, different teams, and I think I looked up to my father. I still look up to him, and so I kind of wanted to be like him. I kind of see signs of that with my son today, which he started playing last year basketball too. So it's kind of cool to reflect back and see how a sport, really, because that's what it is, can mean so much more inside a family like ours. So I think the one really, really impactful thing that I see from my journey is that I think seeing my dad do what he did really naturalized a situation that's not easy to come about. So what I mean by that is, like, it's not very easy to get to playing a sport you love at a professional level and get paid for it. But to me, there was never a limitation, because I think I saw my dad break all the barriers that, you know, could have been there from the beginning. So I wanted what he had, in the sense of, like, okay, he could do what he loved for a living and provide for his family and have a family while being young. He had me when he was 21. So that's where basketball started for me, and it quickly became, okay, through him, I want to do the same. And I think I managed. I mean, I had my kids when I was 25, pretty young, and basketball has fed my family all these years. So, and I get to do something I, for the most part, enjoy. So, so it started back then, and it kind of evolved very naturally and quickly.
Yeah. Let's see. This is something you also talked about. When basketball is something that you loved, or whatever sport that anybody is playing or doing anything in life, you love it, you have a certain passion about it, and then it becomes your job, and now you're doing it for a little bit different reasons. Mm-hmm. How do we prevent that? How do we stay mindful about this and maybe manage it better so that we keep the love and the passion and right reasons for doing it?
I don't think there's a way to prevent certain things. I think that's what comes with the shift to getting paid. I mean, and I say this because I went to college in the United States at a time where it wasn't what it is today. You couldn't get paid. And those were some of the most enjoyable times of my career. Times I enjoyed also the most were playing with my national team in Argentina, and I didn't get paid for that either. So I think something changes when it becomes a job, and it's hard to prevent that. What has helped me is to be very clear and mindful as to, like, why I choose to keep playing the sport. Because I also had to find the courage to say, when I couldn't find that answer, to step away. I couldn't do it anymore, you know, and that happened 2.5 years ago. I didn't know why I was doing it. Everything felt like there was no joy, there was no room for joy anywhere. I couldn't find it. And my message to my kids was always, okay, like, you go after what it is that makes you happy. And not happy, I don't think happy is the right word, but that gives you meaning and fulfillment. And basketball wasn't doing it at the time. So I don't think you can prevent certain things. I think you can learn to manage better, which is the work I did these past 2 years. But it got to a point where it's like the clarity about why I was doing what I'm doing wasn't there, and I had to step away to find the answer. So I tell the athletes that I come across today, it's like, you need to be very mindful of why you keep choosing to be here every day. Otherwise, you get into what I call survival mode, and it's just, okay, how can I get through the next practice, through the next game, or can't wait till the end of the season to just go home and relax. And I don't think those are sustainable solutions. I think you have to dig deeper and really ask yourself, okay, what is it that I'm doing that gives me meaning or a reason to keep showing up? I think some find that in progress, like how much better can you get, or how far along your career can you play, or use basketball as a platform for something bigger, which is what I'm trying to do now. So, and I think you are in a way too. So I think everybody has their own answers, but there needs to be clarity around why you're doing this.
Yeah. And you think that it's okay for that why to change as we grow, as we move in our careers, whatever it is that we are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be a problem if you don't feel like you're changing, you know, and I don't have the same ideas I had 5 years ago as I have today, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay to be flexible and adaptable because we grow and we learn as we go. And today I know things I didn't know when I started. So it's also natural that the way you see things, your beliefs, your relationship with your career shifts, hopefully in a positive way. I think that's the whole point. It's like you can change, you should change, hopefully aiming up all the time and not falling down. And so I think you have to do whatever you have to do to make sure that you feel yourself that you're moving in the right direction.
What was your why before the retirement, and what is your why now?
I don't think I ever thought about why I was doing it before retiring. Like, I didn't have a reason other than it's what I know, it's what I started to do really young, it's what I'm good at, and it's where my family comes from. Like, it's what my dad did. It's natural that it's what I did, and I think that was probably part of the issue back then. There wasn't a single event. Like, it was a combination of things that then led to me making the decision to let go. But I think not really stopping and thinking like, okay, why do I choose to keep playing basketball? And I think it has to be you internal. Like, it can't be because of someone else or a context or an environment that puts you there. And it can also be like, okay, it's what I'm good at. It's all I know. You know, that's the answer I hear a lot. And so I don't really know what my why was before that. I'm intentional about keeping that clear right now. And that allows me to live the challenges that I'm living through this season, which has been challenging, in a much more peaceful way, because I get home and I know that there's something else I can do, you know? Whereas before, it's just like, it was a dread waiting for the next game to be able to prove myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like a lot of us athletes, we just feel like we have to do what we are doing and be 100% there. And a lot of us feel guilty if we have something going on the side. I know I grew up like that, and I lived like that for 10 years while playing professionally, and had all these strict rules for myself because I wanted to make sure that I'm 100%. I didn't even visit many places that I went to because I was like, I'm here for basketball, I'm going to the game, I'm going to the gym, and that's that. But like, I discovered that it's very important also to,
I think it's beneficial, not only important. And I have discussions with a lot of people who think otherwise today, to this day, coaches and other players. It's like, no, if I do this, it will take away the attention of a career that, I mean, rightfully so, it demands a lot from us, physically, mentally, emotionally. But I think disconnecting, doing things that are meaningful for you. I'm not saying superficial things that don't really help you in the long run, right? I'm saying things that are meaningful for you, that allow you to connect with something else, a part of your identity outside of being a basketball player, to then be able to reconnect in a stronger way. I think it's very useful and beneficial. I try to send that message to athletes all the time. Some get it earlier, some get it later. Everybody gets it at their own time, but I think in the long run, most would agree that it is a more helpful way to navigate their careers.
Yeah. I also felt on my skin, like I saw so many older players, how miserable and depressed they were trying to make decision to stop playing basketball because they couldn't figure out who they were without it. And now you are working with athletes, and I'm sure like you give them these pointers too. What would you tell somebody that's playing right now and that doesn't know who they are without basketball? How is this way?
I think it's harder the closer you are to your retirement. And I'm saying physically, like there comes to a point where your body can't go anymore and you just have to retire. And I think, so it's harder if you don't start asking yourself certain questions earlier down the line. And the reason sometimes might be this, like, I don't want anything to take away my attention from what I'm doing right now. I've had work with players nearing retirement. I've had also worked with 23-year-olds who were saying, like, I can't keep doing this anymore. And so I think that's why I'm saying the processes are very different, because when you're younger, your realm of possibility is more open. Like, you can do the work and decide to try to continue your career in a healthier way. When you're getting to the end, there's no continuing your career. Like, it has to end. And it's something I still struggle with, to be honest with. Like, how many more years am I going to play? And how am I going to react when things end for good? Because luckily this time I was able to come back. Now, I mean, what would I say? It's a hard question, because I feel like every case is very particular and individual. And it has to do with how that athlete is living their relationship with their career and retirement. The work I would recommend is trying to bring forward clarity about the question you asked at the beginning, but go deep into the question. Like, okay, what is it that about basketball or about your sport really brings you meaning and joy? Like, it usually at the beginning maybe it was just playing. Like, I love playing. But there might be something deeper there hidden. Like, why do you like playing? What is it about it that you love? And maybe connecting those reasons to something that you can keep doing moving forward. I think that work is very important, because then you have the other step of athletes retiring, which is going into coaching, because it's like, hey,
it's just the next thing.
It's just what I know, you know. But when it's intentional and it's clear, it's like a choice. Okay, great. Like, that's your choice. You want to go do that. But if it's just something that you're forcing onto yourself because you don't take the time to really reflect on who you are, what you're curious about, and what you really want to do after, it can be a problem in the sense that it's not going to be sustainable, or it's not going to bring you the feelings or emotions that you want to feel as you move forward. So again, I think it has a lot to do with self-knowledge, self-awareness, who you are, and then aligning that with practical steps moving forward that bring intention to your choices, and not just choices just because, you know?
Yeah. Okay, let's go back again.
Yeah.
So you were born in Argentina, and tell me a little bit about your progress. Like, I want to see, where did basketball take you? Where did life take you? And how did this shape you?
Yeah, so I was 12 when I told my mom, I don't remember this, she tells me, that I wanted to go to the United States and be a basketball player. And I mean, I told her what was the university. I asked her. And she was like, it's somewhere you study. And so I said, I want to study to be a basketball player. And she was like, there's no such thing, but you can go to the United States, where they allow you to pick a career and play at the same time. And so I was 12 when I told her I wanted to go there. At 15, I had my first national team calls for junior teams. I played international tournaments. That was the first time I started getting in contact with agents and people who wanted to work with me. I didn't know what that was. My dad knew, luckily, and so he guided me. But then I realized that at 18, the path I wanted to take was the United States in college. And through some contacts we had at the time, Pepe Sanchez, who's Argentinian point guard who played in Temple, in Temple University, where I went, kind of connected us there. He really mentored me through the process and helped me make the decision. So I ended up going there. My journey with the national team continued and transitioned from junior to senior. I was able to play a few tournaments with them, and then got to the end of my 4-year college career, and having an Italian passport, the door to come to Europe and to Italy was open for me, luckily. And so that was when Olympia Milano, his coach was Sergio Scariolo at the time, called me to come and sign the contract, and I signed with them. Then obviously I never got to play with them in the 3 years that I was under contract with them. I was always on loan, but that was how I came here, and then my whole career in Europe started, which this year I think is my 11th season playing, with 2 that I took a break. So, yeah.
And how did this break come about?
Well, it came about, like I said, a combination of things. It had been a few years before, so I stopped playing in January of 2022. Years before, I felt like something was happening where I was not motivated, and I'm saying motivated, but not feeling the energy to go to practice every day, not finding joy in the competition or in the challenges. Looking back and reflecting, I can say this now because I took the time to think about what happened, which I didn't know back then. Was there were many events during my career, setbacks, that I never really knew how to leave behind truly. So I carried everything with me. I feel like things accumulated, and then it got to a point where things just exploded. And I think ultimately, like specifically, what led to my retirement was thinking, on top of not feeling how I wanted to feel, is thinking that I was wishing for an injury to be able to get out, And that's when I stopped and said, well, like, I think I'm crossing a line here. It shouldn't be that way. But I was such in a down moment that I wasn't making or taking action in line with those thoughts. I actually shared that thought with my wife, and she got really worried, and she was the one who started calling people and say, hey, I think Juan needs help. Could you guys, talk to him? My agent, who I have a really good relationship with, my parents, the captain of the team I was playing with at the time. And those conversations with them led me to understand that it was okay to step away. I thought I couldn't, and that I would have their support. And I think ultimately that's what made me agree to say, okay, I need this. I need to step away, and I need to figure this out away from basketball.
Yeah. Did you think that was it? Did you ever think that you were going to come back?
No. I never thought I would come back at the time. I actually spent a whole year without even watching basketball on TV. I was so burnt out, and so to a point where I only saw the negatives of my career, meaning like birthdays, weddings, occasions that I couldn't be there. I couldn't be at my brother's wedding, for example, and that's something I have to live with. Missed opportunities or unreached goals. I always thought I would play EuroLeague, and that never happened for me. And so I couldn't make peace with all the negative things I lived through with basketball. And at the time, that's why at the time I said, it's over. Like, I don't know how to manage this. I think I have to step away and figure myself out. I didn't know until a year and a half after retirement that there was something in me that still could enjoy being on a court, and I only found it out by joining an academy in Florida, where I was living with my family and coaching young kids. Through them, I reconnected with a side of the sport I thought was spent and lost. And a year after working in that academy, by the end of the year, I started jumping into a few practices with the kids, and I was like, okay, hold on. Like,
they healed you.
Yeah, there's something, yeah, literally, I think there was something here. And what's interesting is that it wasn't the most talented kids in the academy that brought me that feeling. It was like the short little ones that they knew had no talent, but they were in there all the time and asking me, like, Coach, can we do extra practice, extra work? And it's like I was like them at one point, and I started thinking, I mean, I was working with professionals at the time, a mental coach, therapist, and everyone who helped me throughout that time. And through those discussions and the discovery I had at the academy, I was like, okay, I think I could explore the possibility of making it back. If it's not just for me, it's also for them. Like, these kids would always die for a chance to have what I had, and I think I'm at a point where I can come back and try to make peace with what happened and close my door with played basketball in a different way, hopefully in a better way. And so, yeah, that all led to coming back.
Yeah. So, how long after you sharing with your wife that you actually felt what you were feeling and her trying to find a way for you to get better, how long after that did you start seeing a psychologist or a therapist? Or
It was about, I can't remember, like 6 to 8 months after retiring, and which it was also a big learning for me, because I had worked with a psychologist throughout while I was playing. It was very on and off, and but I never dove into a process fully to really try to fix certain things from the root. And I think, for one, what I learned is that everyone is ready to take on a process like that can be very uncomfortable at their own time. Like, it can't be forced. And for me, it didn't have to happen while I was playing. It had to happen in a way. But after I let go, it was so, everything was so new and intense. Like, it was the first time in my life where I had the weekends off free. I didn't have to go to practice every day. So everything was so new, and there was a different sort of enthusiasm, which kind of like superficially took away all the struggles. It felt like it took away all the struggles that I was experiencing, because basketball wasn't there anymore. So quickly after that, my wife started working for a travel agency in Florida. I was also helping out there, and then I worked with that travel agency too. So it's like this completely new world that kind of like made everything better initially. And until like 6 to 8 months after that, I went down into a hole again, emotionally and mentally, when the routine kicked in. And a lot of it had to do with, like, okay, I'm sitting at home here. I have to go pick up my kids at school and take them every day, which I couldn't do while I was practicing. Who am I, outside of, what am I doing here? And I felt again how I felt when I was feeling, when I retired. And that's the moment when I really, really said, okay, I need help. Like, I can't do this on my own. And most importantly, I realized that you could change everything outside of you, but unless you do your inner work, nothing was going to change. And that was my wake-up call. So I started a process that honestly continues to today, because I need it. There are times where I'm doing a lot better. Everything I'm doing helps me, but there are times where there's still something there that I have to figure out. I'm a lot more vocal and open with the people around me to help them understand how I'm feeling at certain times, especially my wife, who's a saint for, understanding and being there. My kids know it too. Like, I think that helps me too. It's not hiding behind it anymore, but really embracing it and saying, like, okay, it's okay to feel some certain ways, certain times. And now I have people and tools around me to navigate those moments and get out of it quickly, which is what I couldn't do before.
And what do you think, what was the way with you, if you don't mind sharing, to take these things from the root and heal them from deep within?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know what changed in me, but I sat down in front of my therapist and I said, look, don't hold back in asking me any questions you think I need to explore, and I am not going to hold back in my answers. Like, I needed to create with her and the people who helped me a judgment-free space where I could really open up and explore every angle of everything that happened, feeling like I wasn't going to be judged for the things that I did or that I didn't know how to manage at certain times. And it was the only way that I could find the answers I needed to find. Now, it's very, very uncomfortable. It was, and it still is for me. But the willingness to figure things out was way stronger than that uncomfortableness that I felt at times. So again, like, that's why I think everybody starts these processes at their own time. Like, they're, you know, at certain points in your life, I don't think I was ready to do this type of work. And so now, especially because I see the benefit of it, it gets easier and easier, you know? And so I think that's what changed. It was like, okay, I need to figure this out, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to figure this out. And that mindset carries me today too.
So do you think, you mentioned you felt like you needed this judgment-free space. Did you not have it before, or was that something self-imposed? Were you not able to share things because of whatever reason?
Yeah, I think it's mainly a story that you tell yourself in your mind. And at the same time, I think we are built and brought up in an environment where these things are just now starting to be a little more discussed. So, and I think also, it's a message I try to give young athletes, especially, and parents. It's like, sports and the context of sports, it can be beneficial in so many ways, but then there are some ways in which it can subconsciously create beliefs in these young people and athletes that don't help them long term. For example, I was taught from a very young age to not show weakness, like body language. You can't show that you're tired. You can't give your opponent. And when it came to this, I think subconsciously that played into my mind, where it's like, this is weak. Like, you're not doing okay. You better not show it. In fact, a big job at the team I was playing at before I retired was hiding how I was feeling every time I got to practice. And it freed myself to be able to open up. I see how it can be helpful for other athletes to share a certain message. That's why I keep opening up and talking about this. And I think there's a cultural shift going towards that way more and more, but not enough yet, I think. So it's important.
I hear this more often. Every athlete, especially every male athlete, feels the same way that I had the chance to talk to, and it's obviously really important for men to know that it's okay to open up and to be vulnerable at any point, with obviously the trusted people, whoever that is for them. And I love that you share that message, and I hope that this goes a long way, and that more of athletes feel that, and men in general, feel that they can do the same.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, and I think it's important to differentiate vulnerability from weakness, because you can be vulnerable and be very strong. And I found that it takes strength to talk about certain things, whereas, and I know it because of the response it has every time I speak about these things. And so it's like people out there in sports and outside are needing this conversation to open up, but there's this stigma behind it, or judgment behind it, that prevents many from expressing certain things. And I think you can, like, being vulnerable or fragile in a way doesn't mean that you have to break, or that you have to be weak. Like, I think they can be a synonym of strength. I think they are.
I completely agree in that. And it's like you said before, it wasn't easy. You opened up to your therapist, you dig deep to figure out your problems, and it was not easy, but at one point it was the same for me. I hit the rock bottom. That was my rock bottom, and I needed to figure out why. And trying to dig deep, whatever that meant at the time, at one therapist, with another, with myself on my alone time, it's the only way. And I love that we are sharing this message. Absolutely love, and I thank you for that. But you also have one more segment of your life where there is a huge strength shown, and I think that your brother and your family who has supported you both, but especially him in his journey. Can you share a little bit about him?
Yeah, so my brother, he was a year and a half old when he had a medular spine injury. He was just literally jumping from a chair like this to the floor, just jumping. And in one of those jumps, he fell and couldn't get up. I don't remember this. My dad tells me we were on a couch next to him, and my dad was like, come on, like, stop messing around, just get up. And my brother couldn't speak, but he kept looking up and looking at his legs, and like, they're not working. And so that started a whole process of like, okay, figuring out what happened. At the time it was scary because his paralysis kept moving up. And so the doctors were afraid that it could get to his chest and his heart. Then luckily it was stabilized. His paralysis was until the belly button. Then with therapy and rehab, he was able to bring it a little bit down to his waist. But he has never been able to use his legs since then. Now imagine the shock for my parents, especially when your 1.5-year-old son stops walking from one day to another. And especially with, going back to some of the things we were discussing before, my dad was a professional athlete, and the thought he had back then was, like, how am I going to make a living using my legs when my son can't walk? And so he had to figure out how to navigate a challenging situation like that. Obviously, he kept playing, and things happened for a reason. We ended up at my dad ended up at a club, at a team in Buenos Aires, the biggest city in Argentina, which at the time my mom was like, how am I going to do this in a big city? It ended up being the best option for them because there were so many doctors available and therapists. So like, things happen. Initially, my parents were of the idea of sending my brother to chess or computer lessons because they're like, okay, he needs to sit down. But my brother couldn't still sit still. He was in a chair, always like this, moving. And he early on, without speaking, showed that this wasn't going to be a limitation. And so I think also looking up to my dad and what I did at the time, he was like, I want to play basketball too. He started playing at, I think he was like 11. The problem with basketball is that obviously you need a team to practice, and Argentina is still to this day not very developed in that sense. And so quickly he found out that in tennis he could play alone and practice with a coach and also play against, kids who were walking or running. So that's how it started. He became really, really good very quickly. He showed he had talent. And as soon as that happened, like, my parents started moving heaven and earth to find out how he could do this. We found out there was a whole professional level of wheelchair tennis, and that's where he started. Now, obviously, many, many years after, he has sponsorships with major companies. He's a Nike athlete. He's sponsored by brands like Visa and Toyota, and he was #1 in the world in 2019. Now he's fighting to get back to that before he retires. And so it's been quite a journey, and I think it's a situation that inspired me in many ways. I also naturalized his situation very much because he helped me see disability as something that's not different. It just happens as a quality of someone. And again, as not see those things that society could self-impose as limitations because they're not, and he showed that they're not. And so he sends a message very clearly, which is to not let anything external, even a circumstance like this, put limits before you go and test those limits out. And he always says that with that mindset, he was able to reach his top and even break the ceiling a little bit. And I think that's a very powerful message from his end. And obviously, I'm very proud of him.
That's awesome. A beautiful story at the end. And how did, share a little bit more, how did you impact each other in your sports, in your professionalism in sports?
Yeah, I think it's very cool that we can share certain experiences by having lived each of our sports at the highest level, because not so much on the like maybe technical, tactical aspect of things, although he understands basketball much more than I understand tennis in that sense, but mainly about, you know, what we go through and the pressures that we live through. And like, he's also had to work with mental health professionals, and he still does, because he had his own challenges. And so having conversations and someone who really understands what you're going through or what you've been through and finding support in that, I don't think it can get more valuable than that. And I have it in my brother, and I have it in my dad, you know, because they know exactly what I'm living through, because they've been there. Now my mom is more passionate, and like she'll be there no matter what. But I know my dad and brother understand what I'm saying, like, because they know exactly the type of world we work in and how certain things operate. And so it's extremely valuable. I consider myself really, really lucky, you know, to be able to have all these people around me who have helped me and still help me become a better version of myself, I'd say.
Yeah. Can you compare a little bit, since you're working with athletes, and like the differences between the inner part of the basketball game and of tennis? Because it's a completely different sport, but
yes.
Still.
Yeah. So what I admire about tennis players, him and tennis players, is that, okay, we are basketball players. There are 5 people out there on the court. If you're going through a slump, you can, not saying hide, but you can like
lean on.
Yes. You can find support. If you need to take a couple of plays where you just pass the ball, you can do that. In tennis, the mental strain is 10 times harder, because it's just you out there. And you see tennis players talking to themselves all the time. Like, I read Andre Agassi's book, and he was like saying, rightfully so, that if you took a tennis player out of the context of a tennis court and you put him on the street, like, everybody think they're crazy. But it's all these tools that allow you to self-manage, you know, certain emotions, self-control. And I think tennis players have to put them in practice to the extreme, because it's just them. And not until too long ago, they couldn't even get coached during a game like that. It was illegal. So I see what he deals with. He has a whole team behind him, mental coach, therapists, doctors, everyone who helps him, because I think it's necessary. And I think more and more athletes at the highest level are realizing how important the mental side of things is to really maximize your potential. Like, I don't think you can be your best version on the court and off, for that matter, unless you are being intentional about working on the mental side of everything.
Yeah. And how about like the little details in the game? How do you work on these things? Coming into the practice, not wanting to play today, I just can't, or I just don't want to be here. How do you manage to go through that? Same with the games.
Yeah.
Or even in situations when you come to the game and the things are not going your way. What are the little tricks that you use?
Well, especially now, this season, I'll talk about this season, because there are many things I'm doing that I wasn't doing before. I have my own journaling that I do. I've been doing for years, but I've been more intentional this year about journaling the morning off the game and really setting my intentions or how I want to show up. I think I'm getting a little better at visualizations, which is something I work with my athletes too, in the sense of like not really visualizing for a result, but visualizing for a process. Like, how do I want to show up, and what version of myself, by showing up that way, will elevate the chances of me performing how I want to perform. I use mantras all the time, like repeating certain ideas to myself that I think are important. This year I write in my shoes little messages that I think like remind me of how I want to think and feel in a game. And yeah, I think those are some of the tricks too. And then I take a lot of notes. I feel like for me, the process of dumping down what's in my mind in paper, also because I love writing, really helps me bring clarity and move forward. Now, with some of the athletes I work, it's very subjective and very personal. Like, certain strategies work better for some and not for others. So it's also a process of discovery, and it's been for me. And I think the cool thing about doing what I do at the same time is that I can try certain things, experiencing them, and learn from the athletes I work with too, because they give me feedback. And so those are some of the things I've used for me this year. And writing everything down then allows me to bring everything to my sessions with my therapist or my mental coach and say, okay, this is what I was feeling. This is what I want to work on. This is what I want to explore and discover, and it's an ongoing process.
That's awesome. It's really beautiful what you are doing with yourself, and I love that you have shared with our audience, and I hope that many take as much as possible from this conversation and take their steps into becoming the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your story, and good luck with this season and everything that comes after.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Jovanović